Hi everyone, this is Eric Vanderwall once again, and we're going to continue our Substrate developer training program. And we are going to continue with the Substrate recipes, but I'm going to take a little detour to cover some things that will make it easier. Now, one of these is adding our own palette to the runtime. And if we're at the Substrate .dev/en for English /tutorials here. You could just click the tutorials link on the Substrate Developer Hub. They have some tutorials here about add a palette to your runtime. And they give basically an example palette that you can go ahead and do that with. But we're just going to create a really simple copy of another palette, so in the next lesson we can build out from that. And you can go ahead and go through this tutorial on your own, and it's actually a lot more in depth than I'm planning to go into because they're doing a lot more things with it. But I just want to get the most simple, the most basic palette that we can get running as fast as possible with as little effort as possible. So like all the other tutorials, I'm going to go straight into my IDE, and we already have opened the recipes that we've gotten from the GitHub. So go ahead and check out the first lesson if you don't know where we are. And to create our own palette, the first thing we are going to do is just duplicate another palette. And I am going to use the simple event palette because it's very straightforward. There's not a lot of stuff in it and a lot of dependencies and things like that. So it's sort of the most simple starting point that we can get. And for me, on my IDE, I believe I can just go, I'm going to say Control-C and go back up to the palettes here. And just go Control-V and to, let's see here. Let's try that again. Copy. Paste. Okay, so here we go. We're going to give it a new name. So I don't want it to be simple event. I'm just going to call it simple event alpha. We're just going to copy the name, but you can go ahead and give it whatever name that you want it to actually be. Okay, and it's asking me if I want to add this to my Git, and I'm just going to say yes for now. Now, if you look down here on your palettes, you should be able to find it, and I have a simple events alpha. And it's giving me a warning that analysis is not going to be working because it's not in my module tree, but we'll continue to set all this up. Now, to keep everything as super simple as possible here, let's go to this alpha one. I'm going to go to the source, and for now, I'm just going to nuke the tests because we'll talk about tests later, but I'm just going to delete it. And then in the library file here, we need to also delete this test reference. Otherwise, it's a broken reference. Okay, now once we have this, everything in here doesn't actually call the palette name directly, but you should go ahead and check through because, for example, if the palette that you duplicated has a storage, for example, the storage will actually use the palette name within it. So you might just want to go Control-F or whatever the find is and type in the palette name just to make sure, something like simple, I believe this one's simple event, so I'll just type simple and check, and there's nothing there. At the very top, you can describe what your palette does because this shows up in various different regions throughout it. I'm just going to leave it for now, but you're just going to go \\! And set that up. Now, the next thing we need to do to get this running is we need to make sure that, let's check our cargo file here. So I'm using simple event alpha, checking the cargo file. Now, the cargo file is going to set up all the dependencies and the information, basically all the metadata for this palette. So right here at the top, I have name simple event. So this one will be simple event alpha. You know, you can change your version number here. Like this might be version like 010. The edition should be 2018 still. You can set up the author information here, where the repository is located, and a description and everything else like that. Our dependencies are going to remain the same, which is just the very basic dependencies that we need to run this. There's nothing special in these dependencies, so you can go ahead and look through those if you want. And as far as the types go, we don't have any special types, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, once we've done that, we do need to check out the runtime. Now this has a bunch of different runtimes. If you're using the Node template version, it's just going to have one runtime. And that's okay. The one that we have been using or looking at is this super runtime. We can open that up. And we definitely want to check this cargo toml file. So this is where we're going to have to make a few changes. And just like our other toml file, we have the metadata here, like the name of the runtime and the version, everything else. And if we scroll down a bit, we're going to see the list of dependencies here. Okay, I'll move this over. So we have some dependencies here. And first we're going to have all the substrate package dependencies. So we're not going to change any of these. But what we want to change is the local packages. So these are the local pallets. And as you go down, you'll probably find like simple event right here. I double checked before I did this recording, so I made a simple event beta. But I'm just going to copy and paste this in here and just alter the name, simple event alpha. And we also need to change the path directory of where it's stored locally. And make sure the default features are set to false. Now we're going to keep looking down a little bit farther here. And we need to add in the standard library here through through Substrate. So let's find where we are, simple events. Again, we'll just copy and paste this. And at this point, I wouldn't worry about it too much as to what all these things are. But if you're really interested in it, it's in the documentation, which I will link, and then it will go over this and more. Okay, so that's that. So we don't need to change the types. We shouldn't need to change the builder aggregated type. So we can go ahead and throw this on here, but we don't have any special types. So we'll just copy and paste this in here. And I believe that's it. We'll look down. Now, if we look in the main library, actually, yes, we do need to say what our types are. So we'll look down, down, down. So again, you could just search for this using like Control F and search for simple event, and then you would be able to find it, and then you're just going to copy and paste here. But we just need to say that the simple event alpha, in our case, is using, so here's simple event beta, simple event alpha. So we just need to imply this type. So we're just going to go simple event alpha. So we're just going to keep the same formatting as them. As it's using underscores, do more underscores. If it uses dashes, use more dashes. Right. And then it should be here in a runtime construction as well. So we'll just copy this. And again, so see how these are different formatting. We'll just stick to the same formatting that they suggest. And as you can see, it's very simple. We're just using the module, the call, and a simple event. We're not even using generic events. And I believe that should be it. So let's just go File, Save. And I'm just going to build this to see if it throws us any errors. Okay, awesome. It built and now it's running. So that's a good sign that we set everything up correctly. So I'm going to go Control C just to stop this. And again, this is probably just the most simple build we could add. If we had other dependencies, we might need to change that and everything else. But once you learn to build more complicated pallets, then you can learn how to add those in. But right now, since the pallet is so simple, and if you're following this from like front to back of this lessons, then I think it'll be more difficult to learn how to add in those dependencies when you don't even know what they are yet. So I just wanted to set you up for the next lecture, which we're going to be talking about simple storage, where we can store primitive storage values and things like that. And to do that, we're going to need to make our own pallet first, because there is not one for that in the pallet recipes, or the recipes, Substrate recipes. Okay, so there we go. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them into the comment section. Otherwise, please leave me upvote, a little like, a little thumb, and I will see you in the next part.